Welcome back to the BERNINA Skillbuilder Sew Along with Sweet Potato Quilts. In this video, we're making block 5 together, which focuses on strip piecing. I've got all of my pieces laid out here in front of me, and these strip piecing sets are ready to go with fabrics 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each strip will be paired with a background fabric strip. I'm also making half square triangles using the 2 at a time method. For those, I will take fabric 1, 2, 3, and 4 squares and pair them each with a fabric 5 square. And since we've already covered this skill earlier, I'm just going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll be back to walk you through the strip piecing of these units. I'm back with my half square triangles, and there are 2 from each fabric combination, and I've also chain pieced my strips together following the pattern instructions. Now I have 4 strip set units, each made by sewing the strips right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam. Once pressed open, these sets will be ready for vertical cuts to separate them into units. But before we get to cutting, I want to pause and share some important tips about pressing these strips open, so let's head over to the pressing station. I'm at my pressing station, and I want to take one of my piece strips to show you something. If you look closely, you will notice a little bit of crinkling along the seam line, and that's just a touch of tension stuff happening from sewing. The first thing I like to do is press the seam closed. Just a quick gentle press right on top with the iron, and this will help set the stitches in place, and you will see quickly that it will flatten out so nicely. Now you can choose whether to press your seams open or to the darker fabric side, and if you press to the dark side, it makes it easy to nest your seams later on. Some people prefer pressing open for a flatter looking block, and I'll show you both ways. If you're pressing open, always run your finger to press first, run your finger along the seam to open it up, and then let your iron follow right behind. Keeping it gentle makes all the difference. Flip it over and give it one more press, and you will see how flat it can sit. But if you'd rather press to the dark side, place the lighter fabric face down on your ironing board, then open the darker fabric on top. That way the seam naturally falls in the right direction. Finger press first, then press with the iron straight along the seam. Try not to move the iron back and forth across it, as that can stretch your fabric and distort your strip. Flip it over once and give it one last press on the back and you're set. So here's a comparison. There's one strip pressed open and another pressed to the dark side. Both will look great, and it just depends on your preference. I'm going to go press the rest, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how to cut them into units. I'm back with strip sets 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now I'll show you how to make vertical cuts for piecing. I will start with this one because you can see that I did not measure perfectly. My strips were cut to slightly different lengths, but that's okay because the pattern is written to give you a little extra length, so you will have more than enough fabric to get the cuts that you need out of it. To begin, I will square up this end. I'm using a horizontal line on my ruler to match the seam on the strip set, then I'll give it a quick trim to create a fresh, straight edge. And from here, these strips need to be cut every 2.5 inches. So I'm going to flip this set around and place 2.5 inches of fabric under the ruler, line up a horizontal guide with the seam, and use a 2.5 inch mark on the ruler for the straight edge. Then I'll make my vertical cut. After cutting 6 units, which is exactly what I need, I will be left with just a little bit extra. Again, that is built-in wiggle room from the pattern, so you can toss it and leave it for scraps. I'm going to repeat the same process with the rest of the strip sets, and I'll be back once they're ready. I'm back with the strip set units cut from fabrics 1, 2, 3, and 4, and with each set of matching fabric units, I'm going to piece them into little checkered blocks. To do that, I'm going to place one unit on top of the other with right sides together and sew along the edge to create the checkered effect. This is what one unit would look like with seams open, but I'm going to grab from the second pile over here where I pressed to the dark side to show you that when you put these right sides together, you will feel in your fingers that those seams will nest beautifully. Once you sew them and you press them open, these center points will line up so crisp and neat. I'm going to sew the rest of these units together, and I'll be back with the finished checkered blocks. Alright, I've got my checkered units made in fabrics 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there are 3 of them in each pile. If you remember, for the fabric 1 units, I pressed them open first, and after pressing, they came out really nice and flat. I do recommend pressing the next seam open here too, so that your backside will end up looking like this with a little secret checker pattern showing. For the fabric units where I press to the dark side, I do recommend pressing the next seam open just to keep things even. At this point, I would not press again to one side in favor of another. It'll create bulk. So if you compare them, the units with seams open lie just a touch flatter, while the ones pressed to one side sit up a little bit more. It's a tiny difference, and honestly, once everything is quilted, it'll all look the same in your quilt. But if you do have a preference, it is completely your choice. Now that I have all my checkered units and half square triangles ready to go, it is time to set up the quadrants that'll make up the block. This block is constructed in quarters, so I'm going to repeat this process 4 times, one for each fabric color. I'm starting with fabric 1, using the fabric 1 checker units and half square triangles and other pieces cut according to the pattern. Following the pattern instructions, I will sew these units together to complete one quadrant, and once all the 4 quadrants are made, I will join them to finish the full block. I'll be back once that's done. Now here's my finished block where you can see all 4 quadrants in action: fabric 1, fabric 2, fabric 3, and fabric 4 joined together. And if you take a look at the back, you will notice how the pressing worked out. For fabric 1, I pressed those seams open, and with fabric 2, you will see places where I did press toward the darker side, and everything else was pressed open for the block, and it all came together beautifully. I'm so happy how it turned out, and I hope you enjoy making yours too. See you next time.